I'm not going to invest in these areas.
Yeah, it's just so cheap, especially in places like Melbourne. To own land.
Holy moly, I gotta buy this. That's what I was thinking. Just thinking it, being like,
There are areas around Australia with some of the largest land releases. What I mean by that is some of the biggest housing estates that have happened in the last decade.
there are opportunities to make money in these land investments as well.
What is the primary concern?
Does land supply restrict capital growth? In this episode, we're going to have a bit of a theoretical discussion and look at practical examples to see if areas with a lot of land around them are bad areas to invest. Watch a YouTube video, watch a TikTok, and you'll see plenty of people just say, nah, can't be buying that stuff, without really a considered opinion on it. And I'm pretty sure Adi and I are going to have views that support areas with land around them in some cases when it makes sense.
Correct.
Let's go through this, Adi. How are you, man?
I'm really good, man. I think this topic comes up a lot because I think I'm going to call it the uneducated opinion. It's, people jump on Google Maps, they look at the satellite view and they're like, oh, there's a bunch of land around. That means that's a bad thing because it means those houses are going to magically pop up. It's going to mean my house is no longer going to be worth X amount. So the suburb that you picked for me, even though it says everything else is looking fantastic, it's a bad suburb. And that is the conversation we can repeatedly keep having. So I think this was needed. I'm pretty sure I've been asking for this particular discussion for a little while because it's very topical. And I think there is a very big misconception in the industry and in the general knowledge of people who are interested in property investment
100%.
around what vacant land actually means and how it actually translates into
100%.
price growth or price decline.
Yeah, we're talking about the pain points that different groups of buyers have. And this is often pain point, be like, should I be investing in that? So do you want to maybe make an argument or a structured case as to, if I'm a client, I'm coming to you being like, hey, I'm looking into a marketplace where there's land around it. So let's talk about Western Melbourne, just as a real theoretical example. I feel a bit uncomfortable investing in here because I've flown over a helicopter and all I see is land.
Yeah.
And you get an email back or, a client comes to you and says, hey, I'm not going to invest in these areas.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've just released 3 episodes in Melbourne, 3 suburbs in Melbourne, and they're all centered around many of these pockets, at least on a helicopter, it'll look like that. Why would I be investing here?
Okay. I think the first overarching thing to probably tackle here is, what is the primary concern? The primary concern is land becomes houses, right? Those houses then contribute to what they call oversupply. So there's too much stock in those markets, then there is demand. Now, oversupply is a function of a lack of demand, right? It's a function of, obviously, there's a lot of stock available in the area, but you got to remember that if the demand in that area is absorbing that extra stock, that's fine then. That's not a concern.
Yeah, it's not oversupply.
That's not oversupply. That's just standard supply. That's just stock coming into the market because it is feeding a certain demand that is in the market, right? West of Melbourne, you said, we mentioned Hoppers Crossing, we talked about Werribee at one point, we talked about Melton. These areas, or Western Melbourne in general, is seeing some of the highest population growths in the country. More and more people are coming into these areas. There is not enough housing for these people in a lot of these markets that we are talking about.
Yep.
Even if it has a bunch of land that magically turns into houses in the next 5 to 10 years, there is more than enough people coming into these areas to absorb that supply. Where are these people going to live? So I think that's probably the first thing. When people throw out there's a lot of land, understand what the function of that land is, what oversupply actually means, and what demand actually means in relative to that oversupply, or supply, I should say.
100%.
That's probably the first thing.
Let me unpack that into a real life example. So
Let's do it.
I went to the Loom Bakery a little while ago. I think that's what it's called. It was a new opening.
The $13 almond croissants. How the other halves live.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Actually, let me tell the truth. It wasn't me. I went there and I'm like, I give up. But one of my friends was in this line. There was a very long line. It snaked around the corner for the $13 almond croissants that everyone wanted. New bakery, has a lot of jazz to it and people really wanted it.
Yeah.
That is what demand looks like. There's a lot of people who want it. Now,
Loom, in this case, the bakery person, if they go and bake and then create croissants to sell, that's supply.
Yep.
So in this example, Melbourne is the bakery where the land government is going out and creating land for everyone to go and purchase. But there's a line of people snaking around wanting to buy it. So that doesn't mean oversupply. It just means that land is coming online to go and support all the people who want to go live there. Is that a fair summary?
Perfect. That's exactly it. And
I like that one.
that line is getting bigger and bigger. And Loon Bakery is not actually making the croissants fast enough. So the person at the end is actually waiting 2 hours. And there's me who actually waited till the end. They didn't actually get a baked good
And,
because
ran out.
they ran out.
Ran out.
And I had to come back the next day. So if we want to play this scenario out,
That's what it's like.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
what it kind of looks like.
for
Right?
sure. You often have this.
Because the line is getting bigger and bigger, and there's just not enough resources available to be able to create those baked goods, in this case, houses. And that's probably the next layer, right? If you think about logically, what does that look like? When you take land, you take big parcels of land, you subdivide, you build houses on it, there is a huge process, right, that it goes through in order to turn that land into a house where someone can actually live in there, right? So that's probably the other key element that people miss. Firstly, just the definition of oversupply, and I think it's misuse in the industry. But also, what processes do they need to go through? And the reason I've got my screen open here, because I have been asked this question many, many times. So I have actually come up with a templated answer.
Don't tell that. Oh, man.
Right? I've got an answer for you guys.
Don't tell everyone it's templated.
It's my template, so it matters, doesn't it? It makes sense, right?
I like it.
And
You've addressed this so many times.
yeah, because
does
it
it
comes
say?
up quite often, right?
What does
Because
it
we're buying
say?
it. Oh, you're buying in Pakenham, but Pakenham has this green patch there. That's going to become a massive housing estate. That's going to, tank the property prices in the area. What? That doesn't make any sense. Pakenham has so many people moving into it. Something's going to feed that demand. And to turn that green patch into housing,
Also,
there's so much stuff that needs to go
it's
into.
expensive. Also,
Yes.
it's so expensive. You know what happens to that green patch? This is what we're going to talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I want to go through your template.
Yeah.
But one little point that I want to add, and it's
Yeah.
my template.
Yeah.
My template was 3 dot points, so I don't really have
Yeah.
this templated out.
I
But
think you can call that a template, but go on.
my template is there's like this asymmetry in the pricing that occurs here.
Yes.
So Pakenham, really good example. Pakenham gets housing next to it.
Yep.
A patch then turns into a new land estate. Now, I would say that Elias probably not going to be buying in the patch of new land in and around there.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep,
Like
correct.
I've seen all the purchases. There's never a new estate that you're
Nope.
purchasing in. So, but the concern isn't about whether we should be buying in these new estates, joining the Loom line or not. That's
Yep.
not really what we're talking about. It's about whether we should be buying here in Pakenham because it's got land around it. So what happens to the price point of that land? Because it's expensive. It is so expensive to go, dig it up, put roads in, put sewers in, put water in, etc. Do all of that. The cost of land per square meter, when you do the numbers, is significantly higher than Pakenham.
Yep.
It's often double. And right now in Western Melbourne, like when we're doing the numbers on this, a fair value assessment, it's like 5 times more expensive per square meter
Perfect. Yep. That's
than,
it. Yeah.
than the suburbs around it.
Yep.
So if you do the same math, you buy in Pakenham, you buy a 600 square meter block for 700,000.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep,
The build
that's it.
value is probably $500,000. So you're getting 600 square meters for $200,000. That's
Yep.
the land component in this really quick calc. You're paying about $300 per square meter. When they go develop that land around it, you're going to get a 250 square meter block of land,
Correct.
and you're probably going to pay $400,000 for it, or maybe a bit less than that, $350,000 for it. The price of land per square meter is extraordinarily higher in this new area versus Pakenham. It actually lifts Pakenham values up.
Yeah.
It can work in reverse, where it's
Yeah.
just like you've added more supply, but you've also made this area
Super scarce. Yeah.
scarce and
Yeah.
significantly more attractive because of the affordability frameworks of just living side by side.
Correct.
And you see this everywhere. Everyone in Western Sydney, every single person in Western Sydney. I grew up in Lemire, my best mate in Minto, good friends in Campbelltown. My parents live like literally the opposite side of the railway station. They have to drive 10 minutes. I can walk to the train station. And their cost of land is like significantly more. It is about 4 times more, like maybe not that much, but it's significantly more than the old areas around it. And it pushes up the price of those old areas as a result. So yeah, that's my little anecdote there. Asymmetric pricing comes in. So you want to be
really good
buying
point,
around
man.
it.
Yeah. Because you also got to think, right? We're in 2025. We're in 2026. Housing is expensive. Building is expensive. We went through this whole period through COVID where timber shortages, every single thing is expensive now.
Yep.
So now if you're going and buying a brand new house, you're buying more house than you are land. It's just what it is, right? Whereas in the cases that, the kind of properties we're buying, it's more land than there is house. So the 600 square meter block doesn't really exist anymore in the sort of the new estates. It's the 250 square meter block, small lot code, 300 square meter blocks.
It's a big block.
Sold. Yeah.
300 is now big.
Yeah, 300 is now big, right? Yeah. But they're selling for almost the same price as the one that we're buying for. So if you fast forward 10 years, your 600 square meter block is super, super rare. It doesn't exist really. There are people who want to buy it, subdivide it into chop it up into 2, build 2 things on it. Tell me how that's
attractive.
It's so attractive.
Love
it just
it.
Actually the maths, you were doing this maths at the strategy session on the whiteboard.
Yep.
And it just, when you lay it all out, it doesn't make sense.
I convinced myself. I wasn't gonna lie. I was doing it. I'm like, holy moly, I gotta buy this. That's what I was thinking. Just thinking it, being
incredible.
Like, damn, areas like Pakenham, Hoppers Crossing, Werribee, all of these areas where you can buy a house for 600 grand on a 600 square meter block, and that house is nice. It'll cost $500,000 to rebuild. It's just like, what? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
you're buying land for free, and the land right next to it. Just jump on a helicopter. I don't know, like put a drone and just drone around out there, being like, the land over there, it's not free. It's freaking expensive.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
It doesn't come with a house on it.
It's ridiculous. So I hate saying this out. This one, I feel like I'm so confident. I feel like it's against the ethos of what this very podcast is, but it's sharing it out. I'm like, it's so good. It's so good. Damn, this is not going to cost 600,000 anymore. It's going to cost 800,000-900,000 because the numbers need to recalibrate to make sense. Yeah. And this recalibrate, it's catching up because there's land supply around it. Right. Yeah, which is like the very opposite of what people think.
Yeah, and you know what I want to do because as part of my response, my templated response that I've come up with, I've given examples. So I don't want to just talk theory. We're talking theory here. Mm-hmm. We're saying, obviously it kind of makes sense logically. You might be wondering, but places with a glut, like an oversupply issue, we've seen them underperform time and time again. So I want to go through some examples so you can at home, you can do some research yourself. There are areas around Australia with some of the largest land releases. What I mean by that is some of the biggest housing estates that have happened in the last decade, and I want to talk about what the performance has looked like for those markets, because by the definition of oversupply, they should have basically tanked. They should have done nothing. They should have gone backwards, but they haven't in the last 10 years. And I want to go through that. Does that
sounds awesome?
Worthwhile?
Yeah.
Cool. Blacktown. I think you mentioned the West before, right? If you look at a lot of the suburbs in Blacktown, it's had one of the biggest land releases in the last decade or so. If you look at the 23 suburbs that have had pretty high volume of transactions, I'm not going to go into the suburb name, I'm just talking about the LGA itself. The lowest growth was at 83% in a suburb called Riverstone. Do you know what Riverstone is? Yeah? Do you live at Riverstone? 83% in the last 10 years. That's what, 6%? You're the maths guy. What is it, 6% year on year?
Yep.
It's pretty standard, right? So it didn't underperform. On the flip side, the highest growth was 165% in Colby. Do you know Colby?
Colby?
Colby, maybe.
Yep.
Maybe I'm not saying these right. Yeah, Colby. So Blacktown, one of the biggest land releases in the country. The 23 suburbs that have the, sort of like the transactions that, necessitate statistical significance, you're looking at 83% on the lowest end and 165% on the highest end. And this is not my numbers. You can go and have a look at this stuff, right? Let's look at Casey. Casey is southeast Melbourne, right? It's actually very close to my parents. So I know what it looks like. There's still housing estates. Those freaking roads don't open because new houses keep popping up. Lyndhurst, which is the neighbouring suburb to my folks in Lynbrook, 70%. Not amazing, but definitely not zero, right, in the last decade.
It's pretty
Clyde
good for
North.
Melbourne.
Pretty good for Melbourne. Listen to this. My sister lives in Clyde North. 186%. There is new housing everywhere in Clyde North. Now, does my sister wish she bought there 10 years ago? Sure. But she bought there 3 years ago. So the numbers look a little bit different because it's Melbourne.
Yep.
And
Are these growth rates land prices?
No, just like general capital growth on housing.
I think in some of these marketplaces, a lot of the transactions might be land itself. And what you find in these markets, Curtis is actually a really good example. He's bought a lot in that Western Melbourne pocket. Wyndham Vale, I assume that's a new suburb.
Yep.
New suburb. He's bought a lot of land for 200 grand and he's trying to sell it now for 400.
Yep.
I don't know anything about Wyndham Vale, but like I'm pretty sure Melbourne, he's only owned it for a few years as well. Melbourne property prices haven't doubled inside a few years.
But land has become more scarce, right?
Yes.
It's those lands that he bought
bakery.
maybe. Yeah, exactly. It's the bakery thing again, right? And I have other examples as well. There's Ipswich, there's Logan, there's Wyndham, you know. So the overarching thing here is people get worried that, you know, there's a lot of land around. Land means oversupply. Oversupply means my property will go down or not grow in value. The data here tells you that's not the case. The only time land releases also happen is when there is if you think about why would the government spend a bunch of money building roads, sewers, all that kind of stuff, is because there is a population problem that they have. They have a lot more people coming into the sort of area than what the current sort of housing stock can actually support, right? That's a really important thing to consider when you're sort of throwing out like, you know, a little soundbite that, oh, there's too much land around. Because I see a lot of these videos on Instagram, but they don't really explain what it actually means. The premise here is that there are examples of other places who've gone through this process. They haven't struggled. And there is more to it than there's just too much land around. And I think one of the big ones is, it's just so cheap, especially in places like Melbourne, to own land. It's like 300, 200 square meters, dollars per square meter. It just doesn't make any sense.
I think the key focus here is like, you got to look at these situations and you got to look at the numbers. Does the numbers make sense? You can't just blanket opportunity this being like, hey, rule it out because there's land supply around it. It doesn't make too much sense to go and do that. There's ample evidence in ample areas that suggest otherwise. My own investing, I bought in a new lot estate. It has done fairly well. It did very well in a short period of time. I don't own it anymore, but there are opportunities to make money in these land investments as well, where you can buy in early stages where there's clearly stage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You buy stage 1, stage 2. You know that pricing creeps up over time. That's just the way they release it slowly to effectively create inflation over time. And there's that Loom Bakery component because of the migration story that Australia has. You talked about glut. It's Australia. Like, we ain't in Dubai or in China or in, Spain in the early 2000s where China, like, all these markets where they just build. Australia's the opposite. We can't build anything here. It doesn't make any sense to build anything. The feasibilities don't stack up. We don't have that problem. And on the flip side, we also have one of the highest population growth rates in the developed world. And every single time our economy slows down, the government decides, I know the solution. Let's open up the floodgates and not tell anyone about it. Let's bring in more people. Like, it's the story of time. Otherwise, we would have had multiple recessions. Instead, we've had next to none, COVID aside. The whole reason why is every single time, the 3 recessions that we haven't had are all because population growth taps have been turned on. They will keep doing that. That's just the nature of how it works. If they've done it for the last 30 years, they'll do it for the next 32. So there's so much supporting growth in a country like us that creates that continual demand for those almond bakeries. No matter how many they make, there's still going to be more and more demand for it over time, and people want this sort of housing too.
Exactly.
One last anecdote too. Actually, I've got a really interesting one here is I don't really like a big block like to live in. I don't know if that's a thing. That is a thing, like across the board. You know how you're saying you don't like doing paperwork and admin. Like, I think some people actually prefer a 200 to 300 square meter lot. I've got a big plot of land now and it's got like grass everywhere, and I had to, I didn't do it, but like someone came in and did gardening for
You
me.
had
But
to
I had
message someone to come and do the
Yeah,
gardening
it's
for you.
annoying. There's stuff to do. Like people don't want 500-600 square meter blocks anymore. Not everyone wants that. And I've got 2 kids who love it. And yeah, it is helpful. It is handy. It is nice. There are pro sides, but there's also pro sides to having a 300 square meter block where you have just a small patch of grass that just allows a pet to, enjoy themselves or a child to go run around a little bit. Livability preferences are changing here, and that's why you're seeing the subdivision of these lots over time as well. So
Correct.
there's so much to this. Is there anything else in that template that we haven't covered?
No, I think it looks good, man. I think, on the point of like the subdivision bit.
Yep.
In 10 years, right, when land is even more scarce than it is now.
Yep.
I know you don't like them, but if I owned a 500, 600 square meter block, some of them have been 700, 800.
I want to invest in them.
Yeah,
I
true.
want to invest in them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's
So
the yellow wall thing again.
that's the one I want to hold. That's kind of the one I want to hold. If I see everywhere around me, the norm has now become 300, 250 square meter blocks, probably smaller at that stage.
So good. Shrinkflation.
I'm owning a 600 square meter block. What?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Imagine how many people would be. Imagine how scarce your property is. It doesn't make any sense. So there's nothing else, man. I think it just makes so much sense to me. I think I'm sitting across from you. I know we've had this chat probably 100 times over the last 12 months. It makes a ton of sense to me to go into markets like this and not get wrapped into, like the media headlines or whatever it is that people get wrapped into, oversupply, land supply, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a shrinkflation argument there. Like the land around you is going to shrink while your one's getting bigger and bigger relatively. 600 square meters is a small lot to ask someone who's 80 years old being like, in my day, it was 1,000 square meters, these tiny lots on 600 square meters. And, now it's 250.
Exactly.
Soon we're going to be like in tiny little shoebox apartments.
Exactly.
The couple things that you may be here listening to, there's a couple things that I actually do look at and am mindful of is long-term capital metro supply rates as well. So I do think that's important. We're not talking about new land releases here, but we're talking about land supply in general. I do think that does matter to house price growth, and it does also give you a lens as to where the house price growth may be as well. Population growth rates are rising. Population numbers are rising. They will continue to rise. We're going to have double the number of people in our lifetimes and then some comfortably in Australia. And areas where the total supply of homes meets the total demand of people coming in over long horizons will mean lower capital growth rates over the long term because supply can stay in touch with demand. So a good reason why Melbourne house prices have performed a little bit lower than Sydney on a like-for-like basis. So you're comparing the same type of asset across the board. You have one of the reasons why it's been a little bit lower performing is because Melbourne has actually been significantly closer to its demand requirement for housing than Sydney has. Sydney has perennially failed at housing supply. Melbourne has done better there. This isn't new land estates though. It's typically actually apartments that make up a bigger majority of it, and Melbourne's been delivering a lot more apartment growth over this time period than Sydney has managed to. So these things do matter, but that is a contextual framework that you want to have there when you're looking at cities, and you want to be mindful of that in long run factors if you've got a very long run horizon to what you're looking at. And then the second thing to look at is you want to be mindful of how the government is and how much control they have of the ability to influence land supply. So governments control this land supply, but look at their performance of it over time. So Canberra is a really good one that I look at. I've lived in Canberra for a few years, and if you go under the hood a little bit and you look at the KPIs of government there, it's like set out. We want 1-bedroom apartments to cost this much. Like they've got a dollar figure for what a 1-bedroom apartment should look like. It's like controlled. They have a control on price there by government, and they control how much housing supply comes in to keep that price set. Other cities don't do that. Like if they started doing it, it'd be like, oh crap, probably don't want to invest there because I know how much it's going to cost because the government literally says what it is. So you got to be mindful of how much control the government has when it comes to housing supply as well. So there's a couple little tidbits there.
I like that.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to this little discussion?
No, that was good.
Awesome.
Hopefully I don't have to use this template anymore. I'm just going
Yeah,
to
send them this video. Watch this. Yeah. So there you have it. Land supply does not mean everything when it comes to property investing, and you want to consider it, but you want to have a holistic consideration to it. And one of the golden opportunities that exists right now is actually buying near these marketplaces in Metro Melbourne, because it presents amazing numbers. And we've gone through multiple suburb videos about this already on different episodes.